If you're not drinking this magical substance every day, I don't know what you're doing. I hate to say it, but you might be cooked. Right? What is this? It's called kefir. What is kefir? It's essentially a 24-hour fermented milk product or beverage, you could call it. So it's similar to yogurt, but not quite the same. It's more like a yogurt drink. And the main difference of how it differs from yogurt is the probiotic diversity. So if you take a look at the average yogurt they sell in the store, okay, the serving size is 3/4 cup, but they put in brackets 175 grams. So that's the serving size of the yogurt. And they advertise, oh, it's a great probiotic, blah, blah, blah. In that serving size, you're getting 1 billion CFU, which stands for colony forming units. It's essentially the bacteria count in the serving. And out of that bacteria, there's only 3 to 5 different strains. So you've probably heard of like things like lactobacillus. Those are all different strains of bacteria. So 3 to 5 strains with a total of 1 billion CFU in 175 grams. Now I'm going to blow your mind for a sec, but in this kefir, this is homemade. It's not store-bought. You're getting 1 billion CFU in 1 milliliter. Yes, milliliter. So that means if you take a cup, which is about 250 milliliters of kefir, depending how long you ferment it for, it's usually about 24 hours, you're getting about 1 trillion, 1 trillion bacteria in the full cup. And I'll take it a step further. I'll blow your mind a little bit more. Instead of 3 to 5 strains, there's about 60 to 70. So you can see just how much more diverse it is and good for your gut. And one more thing to mention, it's not just bacteria in the kefir, there's also yeast strains. And that's because you use something called a SCOBY. It's essentially the starter that starts fermenting it. And SCOBY stands for symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. So you're not only getting the good bacteria in this count, but you're getting this beneficial yeast to really support your gut health. And they do sell kefir in the store as well, but it's pretty much going to be the same thing as this. You might be lucky if they bump up the different amount of strains to like 10. You might be lucky. And it doesn't include any yeast strains. So that's why it's best to make your own with a SCOBY with kefir grains. And not to mention the survivability. So a lot of people that take probiotic supplements and stuff, most of them are essentially dead to begin with when you take them. But then also, a lot of them aren't going to survive your stomach acid, your bile salts. Whereas in kefir, this is full fat and it has all the natural enzymes, everything like that to keep all the bacteria and the yeast cultures intact. So that way when they actually make it to your small intestine and your large intestine, they colonize your gut instead of being destroyed by your stomach acid or bile salts, things like that. So this is raw here. This is raw, unpasteurized. I use raw milk. You don't necessarily have to, but there's kind of a tier list of different options I would use to make this because it is homemade. You don't just go and buy this. You can get it like farmers markets and stuff sometimes. Depending where you live, there's different laws around it being raw. But I suggest making it at home. It's the best way. You know what's going in it. There's no funny business with it. But in terms of what milk to use, the first one ideally would be raw, grass-fed, organic. You don't need all the bells and whistles, just raw and grass-fed is the main thing. So that'd be the number 1 option. Number 2, if you can't get raw, would be grass-fed unhomogenized. So that means they don't shake it up and essentially destroy the fat globules. You see how this is separated? There's cream on the top and then the milk here on the bottom, the skim milk. When they homogenize it, they shake it up and there isn't that separation, which can make it a lot harder to digest for people. And for third option, I would just probably buy kefir that's already made. Like, if you can't get these two, like this is pasteurized, grass-fed, unhomogenized, just go with this. It's better than nothing and it's a step up from yogurt. So that's what I would use to make the kefir. So I'll show you. You're probably thinking like, oh, I don't got time to be doing all that. This does not take that long, okay? What you're gonna need is obviously the kefir with the grains, an empty jar I'm going to empty it into, and then this funnel just makes it easier, and then a strainer just to strain the grains. So I'm gonna shake this up, get that cream mixed in, and essentially the grains, I'll show you them once I get them here, but they're kind of like gelatinous, like jello. It almost looks like cottage cheese. That's what you're using to culture your next batch. There we go. So we got the kefir here. Now, simple as hell. You're just gonna dump it in here like this. This takes not even 5 minutes to do. I do this each morning. You can reuse this because see all that residue on the bottle? That has a bunch of cultures as well as the grains, so it'll just help your next batch or fermentation of kefir to go well. Then I'm going to get a spoon because as you can see, this isn't full all the way. There's some kefir kind of clog with the grains, so I'm just going to brush them. I don't know if you can see this. But I'm just pushing them out of the way because they're essentially clogging the strainer. And I'm just moving them around, getting all the liquid out like that. And now this is pretty much full. I'm going to put the grains back into the bottle. Sometimes I measure how many I have just to have an idea. I would suggest anywhere from 50 to 100 grams per liter that you're going to ferment. So I measured these yesterday, it was 87. And when you go over 100, like you can freeze some extra or give them to family or friends if they want to start doing this. Or you could feed them to the dogs or something like that. Don't let it go to waste because these are full of bacteria. Good bacteria. So, got all that in there. Well, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this funnel thing here and put it on my scale. This is fresh raw milk. So it's from the fridge. I'm going to shake it up so that cream mixes in. And now I'm going to pour in a liter. Don't want to overdo this and have it spill, but this is a liter mason jar, so it's perfect. A little bit more. It's perfect. Skin. So now I've got here, this is strained kefir. You can drink it room temperature. I personally like it when it's chilled. I find it's like creamier and thicker. But I'm gonna cap that. And now what I do, sometimes the cream gets in here, it's very good. So I'm gonna put the cap back on. Give this a quick little shake. Not too much. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna set this bottle either on the counter or in the cupboard, pantry, or whatever. You're just gonna set it somewhere where it's not gonna be disturbed. You want it room temperature. So kefir ferments best around, let's say 19 to like 22 degrees Celsius. So just room temperature any time of the year for about 24 hours. And what I'm gonna do here with the lid is I'm gonna loosen it. Okay, so you can see it's loose. I'm gonna tighten it till it stalks and then undo it just a little bit so it can kind of wiggle. What this does is, as it's fermenting, any CO2 or carbon dioxide that builds up, it's able to be released. It comes out the cap. And speaking of that, I want to mention a mistake here I was making when I first started making kefir that I'm sure a lot of other people are as well. So let's picture two scenarios, okay? Let's say these are both, just regular mason jars. Size doesn't really matter, but let's say this one, you only fill up about half of it with milk. This one is pretty much all the way filled. You've got your grains in the jar, okay? So these are both kefir fermentations, but the difference here is this one is essentially aerobic. This one is anaerobic. And what this means is essentially the presence of oxygen is aerobic and anaerobic is without oxygen, a lack of oxygen. And the reason why is because you see all this empty space here. This is all oxygen. So when you make this mistake fermenting kefir, you either have too big of a jar or you're not putting enough milk in. So if I was fermenting in this jar and the milk was like that level, I have all this oxygen. And what's that's gonna do is it's gonna turn out into essentially a poor fermentation of it. It's gonna favor other sorts of bacteria and yeast and stuff, and it's gonna still be very liquidy and not taste bad, but not as good as it could be, because kefir is kind of like sour. So when you do anaerobic, it's essentially filled up here and there's not much oxygen. So you're really favoring the lactobacillus bacteria, and it ferments the milk sugars into lactic acid, acetic acid, different byproducts, and that's what gives it its sourness. And I find, as you saw in this one here, it gets that nice thick, creamy, sour drink. Whereas if you do it like this, I said it's very runny. So don't make this mistake when you're fermenting kefir. And in terms of where you can get the grains, if you know a family or friend that already does this, or you can go to farmer's market, they might have it. If you search Facebook Marketplace, some grocery stores might have them. And you want to make sure you're getting kefir grains, not kefir starter culture. Because like I was telling you before, the store-bought yogurt and the store-bought kefir, they don't use grains for either of those. They use bacteria powder that's made in a lab that they just dump in to start the culture and stuff. That's why it's always a super consistent product, is because it's not to say it's not natural, but it's not like natural fermentation. Like they have a lab made starter culture, so it's not quite the same. Yeah, so you can get your kefir grains that way. Sometimes you can get dehydrated ones online and stuff, but aside from that, you need to be drinking kefir. There's no reason not to. If you think you have an issue with dairy, try raw, like I was telling you, raw dairy. And another thing as well, there's the version of beta casein protein. So there's A1 and A2. A1 is essentially a gene mutation in some cows. Most of them are Holstein. So that's the white cow with the black spots, things like that. So those can cause an issue for digestibility with a lot of people. Whereas there's other breeds of cows and other animals, like you could do sheep or goat milk. Those are always A2 milk, the casein. You could do water buffalo, even camel, which is insane. But other breeds of cows like Guernsey, Jersey is where I'm getting this one. It's a Jersey cow, so those are just brown ones. Those are gonna have A2, and they're much more digestible than A1 because it doesn't have that G mutation. And human breast milk is A2, so that's why it's not as foreign to the body as A1. So I hope you found this video valuable. If you did, start drinking kefir. I beg you. It's literally a superpower, a super beverage. Okay? Like, comment, subscribe, and talk soon.